So good morning, Gary. How's it going?
I'm great, Leonard. How's your training been going since we last spoke 4 weeks ago now?
Yes, it's not too bad actually. I'll be the first person to admit that I've been a bit lax this week. I think I've suffered from what I call the virtual finish line syndrome. So um, last week I did the Saris Winter Miles Challenge, which meant I had to ride 4 hours last week, and
Yep.
I did like 6 hours or something. But in my head, I've kind of crossed the finish line, and that's taken all of my motivation away for this week. And I've just done a Zwift session now for 45 minutes, and that's all I've done. But apart from that, it's been going well.
Okay, well, there's two things that I come onto there straight away. The first one is we spoke lots about goals last time when we spoke.
Yep.
So we need to have, although we've got those goals of the summer for next year, we almost need to have these small goals. And stuff like the virtual rides. Obviously, we come into Christmas, so whether you'll do aim to do part of the festive 500 or not, there's lots of small goals that we need to be looking at trying to do. So that's the first thing. Keep those goals coming. So make sure we've got a goal every week, every month, every 3-month block to take us up to our big event. So that's crucial. But the second thing, which I'm going to say to you, I'm actually quite happy with the fact that you've had an easy week this week is okay. You've probably also listened to your body a little bit, and it's really important to listen to your body. So if you're feeling tired, you've crossed that finishing line, that virtual finishing line, that real finishing line, and you've gone, I've achieved that. Take a bit of time to recover. Now, different coaches work in different ways. I'm not one for usually setting sort of stuff in stone, but some coaches will say you'll have a 3-week build and then you have a recovery week. Other coaches, if you're older or a novice rider, might have a 2-week build and then a recovery week. Well, I'd argue why it's 14 days and then 7, or why it's 21 days and then 7. I like to look at the individual. But if you're feeling that you're tired, you've done a bit too much, or you've achieved, don't feel bad about going, I'm going to have an easy, take my foot off the gas this week. What you've got to be careful of is that we keep that some consistency going. So again, same message as last time. It's about keeping consistent in your training. So great, you've had an easy week this week. It's right. Okay, can you now set yourself that target again for the next however many weeks? I'm going to make sure I achieve 4 rides a week, and the total volume in terms of time is up at least 5 or 10% on where it was for the last 4 weeks. So we're increasing the volume of your training, and we're keeping the consistency. And if you can do that, then we're on great course. And this is, again, if we come back to what we spoke about last time, one of the key things is I want you to arrive on January the 1st in the best shape that you've ever been. Because I know we spoke previously, and I know loads of the people who will be watching this do exactly the same. They turn the calendar over, January the 1st, I'm going to turn a new leaf. And that first 4 to 6 weeks of training through January and February is horrendous. The weather's still been great outdoors, and we haven't really had a proper cold spell. We haven't, we've had some wet, but, it's still a good opportunity to try and get outdoors as well. So just make the most of the weather. Try and think if you can be in the best shape you can be come January the 1st, next year is going to be brilliant.
Fantastic. So essentially just continue, because the goal or the weekly targets that I set for myself were to ride between 3 and 7 hours. So you're saying just to increase that by 5-10% or so.
Yeah. So on a 3-hour week, we're maybe looking for 3.5. 7-hour week, your big week, you might be looking for 8.
Okay. That's all.
So we're just trying to nudge it up a little bit. I'm not trying to say, we've got to go now 6 to 10 hours a week. Let's just take it up a little bit, because obviously you take your training up too much, again, you'll end up being fatigued and you won't get the recovery that you need. So as we go probably into the new year, one of the things that we both need to speak about is a lot more about looking after yourself and making sure that you recover properly. It's probably a good one to throw in at this juncture. So, I think we spoke about keeping a training diary to a certain extent as well. And one of the things that is worthwhile just keeping an eye on is looking at what's happening to your resting heart rate. Are you recovering? Keeping an eye on your sleep. Are you sleeping properly? There's other external factors, but don't expect to put in a massive training week if you're down on your sleep, or you're not feeling like your legs are good because you're recovering properly. Or if your heart rate's starting to creep up, you think, I'm not recovering properly. What's going on? Just take an easy day. Don't be frightened to have an easy day if you need to.
Okay, so the rides that I'll be doing, is there a set kind of intensity for those?
So again, obviously, I don't want to promote me. It's not about me. I love to get people into the lab, because from a lab test, I can tell you, and we, when all this lockdown nonsense is over, and hopefully in the new year, we'll actually get you to come up to our new lab, and we'll put you in the lab, and we'll run you through that whole process again. I know it's been a good few years since we saw you in the lab. But one of the crucial things at this point, at this juncture, is keep those rides steady. And if you think you're riding too slowly, you're probably not. I've got too many riders that sort of think every time they get on their bike, they've got to be going and hammering themselves. For me, one of the downsides, particularly, and you mentioned you were on Zwift this morning, is that Zwift, I call it Zwift racing. You can get caught up in that racing element. There's someone flying past you. You can jump on a wheel. There's some great structured rides put on, but they often end up having sections where you're sprinting and recovering. That can be too much. Sometimes you just want to get on and be at that nice, easy chatting pace. If you and I were riding together, Leonard, I want to think, yeah, take that breath. I can carry on that conversation, but yeah, I need to take that breath. So I need to be not quite at a full conversation pace, but I need to be, get that breath in. I can carry on the sentence. Yeah, we're chatting away, but get that breath in.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Because, I mean, the last ride I did last week was down to Hayling Island, and it's a 40-kilometre route, and I like to do the first 28 kilometres in under an hour if I can. Yeah, and I absolutely hammered it down there, and got to the 1 hour point. And I did it, fine. And the next day, my legs were a little heavy and tired, and I think that also contributed to me not wanting to ride this week quite so much.
Yeah, it's a cumulative effect. Now, again, as we get towards next year, I'm going to start wanting you to think about doing higher intensity rides, doing interval rides, chasing times. But at the moment, it's still, we're in that point of the year. It's about volume, volume, volume. Yeah, if you want to jump onto Zwift once a week, if you want to go out with, your riding crew once a week and get your legs ripped off, that's fine. But if you're riding 4 or 5 times a week, 3 or 4, so you bin one off as being an unstructured, a fast, an interval session, a Zwift ride, whatever it might be. But the rest of the rides all are about nice intensity, low, steady state pace, and probably much easier than you think they need to be.
Okay, no, that's sounding good. I think I said last week I ride on heart rate, so I'm trying to keep it between 70 and 80% of my maximum heart rate. Again, it's quite a challenge to kind of ride that low.
Yes, of course. And I've just come back from my training session. Now I've just done an hour. And admittedly, I ran this morning, not cycled, but it's that same thing. I ran with my heart rate, and I had a set value that I needed to stay under, and I was probably under it for around about 80% of the ride. So I thought that that was a good structured session that I did this morning.
Okay,
but ultimately, it's about you. We need an update on your numbers. As a rule of thumb, I would say to you, work out what sort of heart rate you can hold for a flat out 20 to 30 minute effort. I don't like talking about FTP, because FTP, functional threshold power, is too much of a one static number that everyone gets hung up on. But if we look at what your heart rate would be, effectively for a 20 or 30 minute FTP effort, could be a long climb, it could be a solo effort where you're trying to time trial and catch someone. Then what we do is we'd probably say your endurance zone is going to be about 10 to 15 beats lower than that. So the top of your endurance is going to be about 10 to 15 beats lower than that. That would be a starting point. But, as I say, it's much better if we can get those numbers done and measured accurately. And again, as we go on, I'll maybe talk to you about how we can do a simulation at home on Turbo Trainer that people can get an understanding of roughly where they should be for those numbers. But for now, it's just keep it easy, keep it steady, keep it simple.
Brilliant. That's very, very clear.
So we've got the run up to Christmas. And again, my thought would be sit down, whether it's by yourself, whether it's, you've got family, partners, kids, whatever, and look at what that Christmas, we're still in a weird year at the moment. So some people are working, other people are furloughed, everyone's all over the place. But look at that Christmas holiday period. For you, is that going to be a period of rest where it's family comes first and therefore I'm not going to be able to get on the bike? Is it going to be a mini training camp where work is shut down? You're still working, work is shut down. I've now got this, this 10 or 12 days of mini training camp. Is it going to be somewhere in between? So we set yourself a target on that and then we build up to that. And then we get yourself into the new year and go, right, okay, we've got new year, we've got fresh goals. We now need to think a lot more about structure and how we're building that structure into your training. So the last month and this month is just about getting the legs going, keeping the legs going. And as you said, between that 3, 4 and 8 hours a week on a consistent basis, if you can.
So that's definitely, I can do that. That's something I'm self-unemployed at the moment. I haven't worked for months. So that's fairly easy for me to do. Yeah. So
in one sense, you've got no excuses.
I know. It's hard.
But actually, and I'll flick it back because in the same way, I'm not unemployed. But I can't. I'm still with second lockdown. I'm not testing at the moment. I haven't been testing as much. So the people visiting, I'm not taking a lot of my time with people coming and visiting the lab. Although we'll be open again for mid-December. We've got the builders in at the moment. We've moved venues. There's a whole load of exciting news going on with Sports Test. We'll be opening the doors again from about 16th, 17th, 18th of December. We'll shut down a bit for Christmas, and then hopefully from January, fingers crossed, everything will be good. But actually, when you've got all the time in the world, that's when you sometimes don't train either.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so, definitely. Procrastination and everything.
Yeah, having that that diary of, right, okay, this is what I did last week. This is what I'm planning to do this coming week. And it might not be set in stone and things will trip it up. But actually having that, right, okay. So for me, for the athletes that I coach, on a Sunday night, I will look at the weather forecast for the week. And I go, oh, look, I already knew that Wednesday, yesterday, just gone, the weather was going to be atrocious. So a lot of the guys had an easier ride on the Wednesday, or they did a shorter turbo session, whereas today and the weekend's not looking too bad. So I've loaded their week that they'll do more today. So some of them will be outdoors. Some of them are lucky enough that it'll be outdoors in the day. Others will be, evening rides. But it's just, again, it's that mentality of if it's cold and it's wet and it's horrible, sometimes you just want to sit in front of the fire as opposed to go and jump on the turbo or go outdoors. So think short term, look at the weather forecast, look at how your legs are feeling. Think, right, what am I planning to do tomorrow? How does that fit in with everything else that I've got going on? And as you say, you might not be, someone might be listening to this and they're furloughed. They haven't got to go into work. And because of that, they'll struggle for motivation. So, create yourself a little plan of this is what I want to do. It's probably a bit late now because I think it finishes in about 3 days' time. But again, on the Sports Test's website, we gave a free training plan to cyclists for the whole of November through this second lockdown. Now, if people want to get it still, contact me and I'll send you a copy over. It's not a problem at all, but it gives you some sort of structure that you can follow, that you go, right, okay, this is a routine I can follow. And I think it's important that you get into routines. Now, whether that routine is it's a Monday and a Friday that's a rest day, or a Monday and a Thursday that's a rest day, or whether it's my long ride days a Wednesday or my long ride days a Sunday, it doesn't matter. But if you start to build that routine, you will start to get that structure. If you're in that situation where, the world is going mad around you and you haven't got those time constraints. And sometimes I find completely opposite. The people that are flat out at work, busy, are the ones that get all their training done because they have to be smart about it. They have to make sure it's done. So, sometimes it's again, it comes back to goal setting, it comes back to targeting, but that's really where we're at the moment, Leonard.
Okay, no, that's all very straightforward. So just to recap then, it's consistency, it's easy rides, setting or trying to establish some kind of structured routine that you can get yourself into, regardless of whether you're, working or you're furloughed or, like me, just the work's just not there,
Yeah. So and that routine then breeds. And again, my little tip, if you can get out, for you or someone that's furloughed, get out first thing in the day. It's great to be a procrastinist. I'm great at it. But actually, if I get out the house first thing in the morning, and for me, that means shipping the kids off to school, right, I'm going to go and train now at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, sometimes I've got other things that come up that mean I can't. but it's having, if it's done, I felt good about myself. And so this morning I've done an hour. I now feel good about myself. I can now crack on and do 1,001 other things that I've got to do. Otherwise, I'd get up in the morning, I'll start doing all the other things I think that need doing. Phone rings, something happens, and then you're suddenly finding that the time for your training is getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and it gets binned off.
Yeah. Absolutely.
By the time you've missed it for 2 or 3 days, you just go, oh, why am I bothering? Whereas what I want to do at the moment with you and with everyone that's listening to this is, if we can have the consistency in your training, you will achieve January the 1st in better fitness than you've ever been, which sets us up for a brilliant year next year.
Fantastic. All right then, Gary. Well, I think we've got it there. So that's
perfect.
Yeah. So that's for this month, and that's the plan.
Good stuff. Looking forward to catching you in another couple of weeks, Leonard.
All right then, Gary. Well, thanks very much for that, and we'll speak again in a month.
No problems. And again, obviously, if any of your viewers want me, then give me a shout.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll leave a link to your website in the description to the video.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary. Bye.